So far in this series we've looked mainly at human faces, but today we'll see some weird and wonderful beings and ask why ferocious and scary beasts, and dragons in particular, feature so often in manuscript illumination. The basic symbolism of the dragon was the incarnation of evil, the very devil. The Christian life was seen as a constant struggle against the temptations of the devil. Hence, dragons are often depicted in conflict with humans. This physical violence was a metaphor for the necessity of mental engagement with spiritual snares and difficulties rooted in the devil. Here, a centaur, a human-animal hybrid from the pagan past, spears a ferocious beast, while a dragon lurks in the margin. Above them is a portrait of Pope Gregory the Great, the author of the text. It is his great work on the Book of Job, which is all about remaining steadfast in faith through trials and misfortunes. To the medieval mind, there was nothing odd in putting an image of strange and monstrous beings in close proximity to another of the head of the church. This image is from a very early printed book, William Caxton's edition of the popular collection of biblical stories and lives of the saints, known as the Golden Legend. It shows the Archangel St. Michael defeating the devil in the form of a dragon at the end of time, as described in the book of Revelation. England's patron saint, St. George, is also a dragon slayer. And St. Margaret, another very popular saint, was devoured by a dragon, but escaped when it burst open. Dragons, which medieval people regarded as belonging to the same family as serpents, have sinuous bodies and long coiled tails, making them very adaptable at fitting within tight spaces in manuscripts. As well as drawing them as a reminder of the potential traps within a text for unprepared minds, the scribes could have a bit of fun too. The manuscript I have with me today is full of dragons. It's a mid-12th century copy of Gregory the Great's sermons on the four Gospels. Each one begins with an initial capital letter, some cunningly constructed from dragon bodies. Here, a letter A is formed from two dragons, one biting off the other's head, while a third winds itself around them and appears to bite itself. This one, another letter A, has a similar arrangement, but this time the third dragon disturbingly holds a human face in its jaws. One dragon can conveniently be curved into a letter S, while another S has the same form, but is given a human head. And here, what at first glance looks like an abstract floral design is a letter C, formed by a pair of conjoined dragons scowling at each other. It might seem strange that creatures representing the devil stand at the beginning of a Christian text, but perhaps these dragons, which to the medieval mind were very real, could be offering a warning along the lines of, "Look out, be careful, this is strong stuff, and if your mind is not fully prepared for what you are about to study, you could be led astray." To the monastic mind, one of the key functions of the devil was to tempt converts to turn back from the cloisters to the world. Demons were malevolent and persistent and needed to be engaged with, struggled against and overcome. In spiritual terms, they could be seen as a form of exercise to strengthen faith and resolution. They were a necessary other against which the Christian way of life could define and strengthen itself. This manuscript, one of my favourites, is a copy of the last 12 books of the Old Testament, the books of the 12 minor prophets. with the accompanying commentary or gloss. It dates from the 12th century and belonged to the Priory of St Guthlac in Hereford, which was a daughter house of St Peter's Abbey, Gloucester, a wealthy Benedictine foundation. The layout of the pages is very pleasing to the eye and helpful too. All the relevant observations from the early church fathers and some later theologians are grouped together around the larger sized biblical text, making it easier to study its meaning. There are 12 books, and each one begins with an exquisite illuminated initial of the highest quality. At the top of the second leaf is an inventory mark that identifies the book as belonging to St Guthlac's. This book was number 43 in the collection, which must have contained at least 45 books, as another book today at Jesus College, Oxford, has number 45 in it. After the Reformation, this book came to the cathedral in the bequest of Sir John Price, an administrator who had been directly involved in the dissolution of the monasteries and who had benefited as a result by gaining St Guthlac's Priory as his home, and some of the books from its library too. There is a dragon in this book. At the beginning of the book of Zechariah, the initial letter I is inhabited by a long blue dragon with a rather punkish dog-like head. Here's another letter I. This time just the head appears, its mouth clasping the top of the decoration. 6 of the 12 books begin with an initial letter V, each one formed from the elongated bodies of 2 dogs. I call them dogs because they have 4 legs, and their tails, where they are visible, are just thin flourishes of white over the vivid colour of the ground. In some of these, one dog bites another. It looks rather painful. The colours are extraordinarily brilliant, and the central space of the letters are infilled with wonderful curling tendrils and unearthly looking blooms. This illuminator was at the top of his game. Here's another of the same pattern. You've probably noticed that all of them have small patches of gleaming gold, often ball-shaped. The dog on the left here has a tail with an ornamental finial, which fills in some of the otherwise dead space. The fine detail stands out beautifully against the blue ground, which at this period would have been made from lapis lazuli. Using dogs with elongated bodies to form letters could be a distant memory of the Celtic tradition. Dogs with convoluted and twisting bodies decorate the pages of the Lindisfarne Gospels and the Book of Kells. And in the Hereford Gospels seen here, which was made around the year 800, elongated dogs appear in the bodies of the largest letters of the incipit pages. Dogs could be a sign of faith, of perseverance, of fidelity, of doggedness indeed. Dogs defend sheep, therefore they could represent men in holy orders, guiding their human flocks. On the other hand, the majority of scriptural references to dogs are negative, living on in phrases like going to the dogs. Here's one final initial from the St Guthlac's book. Now the 2 dogs are having a standoff. The one on the right is licking its lips and has its tail between its legs. The one on the left has a dog-like head and body which turns into an enormously long dragon-like tail, the sinuous nature of which surely has its roots in that Celtic tradition, although this style of initial is known to medievalists as Channel style, because it is found on both sides of the Channel, England and present-day France. So, what can we know about the meaning of these decorated initials? That they had meaning is clear, either for the communities the books were made for, or the individuals who commissioned them. Some of these meanings are plain, some open to interpretation, others lost in time. Although the Middle Ages are not that far away measured in years, today we live in a very different world, and it's hard to re-enter the medieval mind. We know so much that they didn't, but at the same time have lost their familiarity with the layered, unlearned meanings of a Christ-centred world, which was also closer to the pagan past. I hope you've enjoyed finding out more about the illuminations in some of our medieval manuscripts. This is the last in the Medieval Faces series, but do watch out for more webcasts featuring some of the star items from Hereford Cathedral's historical collections.